I'm going to start with two verses about love. And the first one is from Matthew. Hearing that Jesus had silenced the Sadducees, the Pharisees got together. One of them, an expert in the law, tested him with this question. Teacher, which is the greatest commandment in the law? They're trying to trip him up here. Jesus replied, love the Lord your God with all your heart, and with all your soul, and with all your mind. This is the first and greatest commandment. And the second is like it. You notice he was only asked for one, he's given them two anyway. Love your neighbour as yourself. All the law and prophets hang on these two commandments. And then, flipping over to John 13, a new command I give you, love one another as I have loved you, so you must love one another. By this, everyone know that you are my disciples, if you love one another. For me, these verses are the fundamentals of my faith. Not because I think you can kind of pick out a couple of verses from the Bible and decide that that's your faith and build everything around them, but because these are this is the central theme for Christian living, which just comes up again and again through the Bible. Just have the next slide. I kind of summarise it as love God, love each other, love other people, and that's all of them. I just can't see a way to get away from this. God is love. That's in 1 John, by the way, but that's not one of my verses. To love is our central call. As such, everything else we read in the Bible has to be viewed through that lens of love. Any moral framework we build has to be compatible with that basic premise. All of our actions should be actions of love. I often struggle with defining statements of faith when an organisation or denomination writes down everything that, these are the things we believe, and these are the things that define us as Christians. Because I always kind of feel like it defines a them and an us, and in or out, right or wrong, and ties down as many issues as possible. But for every item I think one Christian thinks must be in a statement of faith, another one will feel is secondary or even incorrect. So for me, these verses form my statements of faith. And for me, the rest is up for discussion. I'm not saying that the rest is not important, but I think that there's so much that can divide us or can bring us together. And if we allow things to divide us and to be things that, well, you're not a proper Christian if you think this, this, and this. So for me, the more I sort of dig into some of these statements of faith, the more I strip back and say, well, actually, the fundamentals are in these verses, and the rest, let's talk about that. That's an ongoing conversation. I think the love concept is so important, I'm going to throw in a third love passage. This has come up before in other people's top 10s, it was in Susan's, but it warrants repetition. And it's 1 Corinthians 13, the love passage, classically read at weddings, and a large part of it describes the attributes of love. And that's really good. But I'm actually going to focus on the first 3 verses, the introductory verses. And they are, if I speak in the tongues of men or angels, but do not have love, I'm only a resounding gong or a clanging cymbal. Right, and I've handily got a cymbal here, so you just noise. If I have the gift of prophecy and can fathom all mysteries and all knowledge, and if I have a faith that can move mountains, but do not have love, I am nothing. If I give all I possess to the poor, and give over my body to hardship that I may boast, but do not have love, I gain nothing. The whole of chapter 13 is fantastic. But for me, these first 3 verses, they're a bit of a sort of slap around the face for us. A sort of, wake up, pay attention. And to any who show a loveless approach. And they're a constant reminder that we must avoid that kind of loveless approach to how we live our lives and how we live out our Christianity. I have to continually remind myself that there's always a need to place love above being right. We can get so focused on having the right theology, having the right thinking, doing the right thing, being the right way, and we can end up appearing to do all the right things, convincing ourselves we're doing all the right things, but being utterly devoid of love, and just slip into a new legalism, and you see the whole legalistic thing coming up again and again in the Bible, where humans tie themselves in knots over sort of creating a legalistic approach to things, and God just kind of keeps coming back to them and saying it's all about love. In the 1st century BC, I discovered this while I was doing research for this. There were 2 Jewish rabbis who were asked by a gentle, obviously trying to provoke them, if they could teach him the whole Torah while he stood on one leg. The first was indeed provoked and gave the man a whack, with an angry whack with a stick. The other rabbi replies, "That which is hateful to you, do not do unto another. This is the whole Torah. The rest is commentary. Go study." I think that principle still applies in the light of Jesus' teaching. Again, it's not saying the rest of it is unimportant, but the rest of it is the detail. It's exploring what it means and how you work it out. Love and risk getting other stuff wrong? I'll take that. I still have a long way to go to even put that into practice, though. Which takes me on to my next section, on putting faith into action, and into the book of James. James is big on the whole faith into action thing, and I've long been a fan of his writing, although I do find it very challenging personally. So the first one is from James 2. "My friends, what good is it for one of you to say that you have faith if your actions do not prove it? Can that faith save you? Suppose there are brothers or sisters who need clothes and don't have enough to eat. What good is there in you saying to them, 'God bless you, keep warm and eat well,' if you don't give them the necessities of life? So it is with faith. If it is alone and includes no actions, then it's dead." Again, this is another of those, come on, don't you get it verses. James is trying to sort of shake people up a bit. He's making clear that someone who claims to have faith but then demonstrates no actions to back up that faith is really exhibiting no faith at all. It's an empty, a dead faith. If faith is real, it will lead to actions. That's not to say it will lead to instant perfection, and I'm not saying that if you're not perfect and not demonstrating perfection, then you're not demonstrating faith. But a faith that doesn't lead to actions just seems kind of hollow and empty. And this verse for me is a constant challenge, that actually it's all about putting it into action. It's not about continually thinking about it endlessly. It's about actually doing something with it. And I think very much people outside of the Christian faith view us this way. They view us by our actions. They don't view us by what we say we believe. They view us by what we do and what they see us doing and how they feel we are responding to them. For my next one, I rewind a bit to James 1. "My dear brothers and sisters, take note of this. Everyone should be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to become angry." This one's a struggle for me, and I throw it in for that reason. I've often wrestled with anger and a tendency to flare. I also have a tendency to talk my way into trouble. So I think there's sage advice here. Listen more. Hold your tongue. See someone else's perspective. Don't close your ears. Don't hold tightly to your preconceived view, and don't grow angry because of these things. I think we really need these challenging verses to keep us on our toes. Top 10 of sweetness and light wouldn't really quite cut it for me. There's got to be something in there to challenge and to shake it up. Not just the verses you think, oh yes, I really agree with that, that's wonderful, that's lovely, let's have that one in. There's got to be something that really does give you that poke and that prod. Love into action. It appears to me that's our calling. And that neatly gives me an excuse to play you a bit of Paul Bell Tickets are still available for a mere £5 all in aid of food bank. You see, you get a free advert with them so as well. So if you can put on the first video, please.
Say love is in your eyes, the way you look at me. Well, maybe that's a trick of the light. Some say love is in your voice, the talk is so cheap, words lose their meaning. So I say, love is in our hands, not just in our hearts. If love is to mean something, this is where it starts. It isn't words alone. Love is flesh and bone and life poured out. Some say love is in his kiss. That's not where it is. It sounds more like lust to me. Some say love is in your heart. The feelings ebb and flow, and they can deceive you. So I say love, love, love is in our hands, not just in our hearts. If love is to mean something, this is where it starts. It isn't words alone. Love is flesh and bone, and the life poured out. Love is in our hands, not just in our hearts. Something, this is where it starts. It isn't words alone. Love is flesh and bone, and life poured out.
I'm going to play you verse 6 in song as well. It's much shorter, so you've got to pay attention. In autumn 2004, after various problems at work and a long period of stress, I fell apart. I suffered from anxiety and depression, hitting one of the lowest points in my life. I left my job, even though that left us with no income as a family. With the love and support of family and friends, I gradually crawled out of the dark place and started to get better over the subsequent months. But healing was and is a gradual process, and one that's still ongoing. I still suffer from episodes of depression, but I'm nowhere near the level I did 9 years ago. One of the verses I clung to as I started to recover was Psalm 30, verse 5. Weeping may stay for the night, but rejoicing comes in the morning. Or, as the song paraphrases it, there may be pain in the night, but joy comes in the morning. I prefer the way the song puts it, actually. It really hits me the way they paraphrased that section. There may be pain in the night, but joy comes in the morning. As Christians, we're not exempt from the pains of this world, but we have faith that there can be a brighter tomorrow, and we know that God sits right there with us in the depths. For me, logic starts to fail on these kinds of issues, and the poetry of much of the Bible I find much more helpful. I'm generally quite a sort of analytical person, and I like a nice logical argument, but I think there's a real place for an understanding that goes beyond pure logic, and I think the Bible really responds to that in so many places. So much of the language in the Bible is poetic, not even just the things we necessarily associate with it. Now, I've dipped into the Psalms here, which is which is the classic, but it's elsewhere as well. And I just find that actually can reach me in a place that sometimes the more logical stuff can't. More poetry for troubled times, but with an optimistic glint in the darkness, can be found in Psalm 42. I say to God my rock, why have you forgotten me? Why must I go about mourning, oppressed by the enemy? My bones suffer mortal agony as my foes taunt me, saying to me all day long, where is your God? Why, my soul, are you downcast? Why so disturbed within me? Put your hope in God, for I will yet praise him, my Saviour and my God. My next section, a wild jump, I've headed counterculture. I hope that will be self-explanatory as we read on about what these verses mean. My next verse, I'm tempted to headline as The Secret to Happiness. I've gone from misery to happiness in a few swift seconds. Found in Philippians 4, it says, I have learned to be content whatever the circumstances. I know what it is to be in need, and I know what it is to have plenty. I've learned the secret of being content in any and every situation, whether well-fed or hungry, whether living in plenty or in want. I think there's so much pressure in life to always seek more, to always be reaching for the next thing. And we're sold, you can have it all. You can have that holiday, car, TV, perfect family, etc., etc. And TV, I think, particularly sells us the dream, and it sells the loan to make it happen as well. The trouble is, it just fundamentally doesn't work, because there's always something else. There's always that next thing that you don't have, something else to grasp for. But I believe that learning to be content in all things actually does work. It's not about just accepting your situation, never looking to improve your situation, but rather making the most of whatever life throws at you. I think that's what this verse is really about. Or as the popular phrase has it, when life gives you lemons, make lemonade. Number 9, from Mark. So Jesus called to them and said, as you know, the kings and great men of the earth lord it over all the people, but among you it is different. Whoever wants to be great among you must be your servant, and whoever wants to be the greatest of all must be the slave of all. For even I, the Messiah, am not here to be servant, but to help others, and to give my life as a ransom for many. Jesus was quite big on reversing cultural conventions and expectations, on flipping worldly ways of doing things. And actually there's a history of that before Jesus in the Bible as well. The wrestle of the people wanting a king to rule over them. That's God phoning to say, can you shut him up now? Do you get to get a message as well, do you think?
Yeah.
Oh, good. Sally's making sure that's not going to happen again. We're unplugging the phone. Sorry, loss of focus. Do you want to do a full roll or something? Okay, flipping cultural convention, reversing popular belief and worldly systems of doing things. I think in this example, Jesus teaches us a lot about leadership. I'm currently studying a degree in charity management, and we've been looking at different leadership styles in one of the modules on that. In my reading, I came across the concept of servant leadership. It's a defined concept, often credited to Robert Greenleaf. But actually God got there first. Servant leadership bucks the trend of leadership in so many situations where we establish hierarchical top-down systems of leadership, where the person at the top is in control, command and control systems, very sort of militaristic. Guy at the top, he's the leader, he's in control, you do what he says. And it's usually a him. Servant leadership looks to enable and empower followers to bring out the best in them rather than to control them and dictate exactly what they should do. Even the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve. If ever there was a reason to adopt servant leadership in my own management style, this is it. And I think it's really important that we try and apply the lessons we learn from the Bible in how we conduct our everyday lives, all areas of our lives. So the way I work should reflect the things I take from the Bible and the approach I take from the Bible. Another thing I notice a lot is that the Bible is full of broken people being used by God, and being used by God while they're still broken. David in the Old Testament is a prime example. The disciples, frankly, were quite the mixed bag. In Romans 7 we have Paul describing his weaknesses and summarising the reality of being a real person struggling with some of the things we all have to face. We sometimes need to touch base with this reality. Our Bible heroes were all deeply flawed, struggling through and trying to be better. Paul says, "For I have the desire to do what is good, but I cannot carry it out. For I do not do the good I want to do, but the evil I do not want to do. This I keep on doing. So then, I myself in my mind am a slave to God's law, but my sinful nature a slave to the law of sin." I know I often find myself doing the evil things I don't want to do and not the good things I want to do. Part of this counterculture life that is following Jesus is accepting the broken and the messed up, accepting that God loves them, loves us, accepting that God can and will work with us regardless of our imperfections, accepting that we have much to learn from other people who are broken, and accepting that we're all on a journey, we're all exploring the commentary, to go back to the illustration earlier. We don't always have the right answer, but we know we start and we end with love.